Okay, welcome. Page 52. So the last thing that we said was Reb Shlomo was talking about the difference between Purim and Yom Kippur, and I just found out today that that whole thing about Yom Kippurim, that teaching that Purim is even higher than Yom Kippur, that Yom Kippurim is Yom Kippurim, is actually originates in the Tikkunei Zohar. It's an ancient text. It's an ancient teaching. So Shalom Lecha. Kol Beseder?
Yeah.
Okay, so he told the story about this rabbi who taught in a yeshiva, who told him that he got a call from him one day, and he says, "Look, I give great lessons in Torah and everything, but inside I don't feel alive." Said, "I hope that," he said, "that's maybe is good enough. He's doing everything right, he's a religious Jew, etc., etc. But he said maybe for Yom Kippur that's good enough, but for Purim, it's got to be deep inside." Okay. So now, and so we discussed this quite a bit last week, and did we talk about the whole thing about Matan Torah? We spoke about that, right? That when the Torah was first given, it was an aspect of force. We spoke about that, right? Okay. So he says like this. We're on page 52, the first big paragraph. Ma Esav Rotze Uma Yaakov Rotze. What is it that Esav wants and what is it that Yaakov wants? Esav Rotze Lochiach Yaakov. He wants to prove to Yaakov, Shalcha Gam Kein Lo Ichpat. You don't really care about what you're doing. In other words, this religious trip of yours, you don't really care about it. That's what Esav was saying. Now, deep inside, you don't care about it. Esav Amir li Yaakov, Ata shakran amiti. Esav says to Yaakov, you're a real liar. Ani lachol hapachot omer emet. I'm at least telling the truth. Li lo ichpat. He's saying, I don't care. I'm being honest. But you say that you care, but you don't really care. Right? Anybody never had that struggle inside? Right? It's a real issue. I'm keeping Shabbos, but do I really care? Esav says, you're a liar. You don't really care. Right? If you, there's a book that's, I have it upstairs, I never read it, but it's called Af the Derech. It's a term meaning for people who were religious and they stopped being religious. And the question that they did a study, Michal, they went around and they asked religious people, if you were on an island somewhere where nobody knows you and you have 24 hours to do whatever you want, you could be religious, you could be not religious, we're giving you a bubble in time, no consequences, do whatever you want. Would you be religious during those 24 hours or not?
One is religious because one recognizes God.
Okay,
so it doesn't make a difference if nobody's around God.
Absolutely right. But what do you think? I don't know if it's the majority, but what do you think a high percentage of people answered? They would do whatever they would go and indulge in anything that they ever wanted to indulge in, right? So Esav is saying, you see, you don't really care. You're doing
this it. This is after Yaakov told him in Roland Garti.
Yeah. This is Esav's argument in general, and as Esav, the metaphorical Esav, the predecessor of Amalek. Amalek is saying, yeah, you don't really care. Right? In other words, how deep is it really reaching the inside you? How much do you really care on the inside? How deep is your Yiddishkeit that you come to circumstances caused you to end up living in some place? You grew up in a religious community, now you're living in a non-religious community. How far are you going to go to rebuild religious life? Okay? So Esav says, I'm honest. I don't care. I'm telling you the truth. But he claims that you who says that you do care, I don't believe you. You're a liar. Esav continues and he says, B'Yom Kippur ani olech lekol nidrei. Esav says, Yom Kippur I go to shul for kol nidrei, for the opening prayer. V'acharei hakol nidrei mechaker li hamonit b'chutz v'ani nosei al kef, and then afterwards there's a taxi waiting for me, and I go have a good time. Because the whole thing doesn't really matter to me. But you, Yaakov, the truth is, you also don't really care. Well, why not? Everybody else is doing it, Okay. So it's a nice cultural thing. I don't know. There are such things like as a cultural Jew or something like that, right? So in another teaching, Reb Shlomo spoke about it this way. Every one of the 12 letters, there are 12 letters. I'm sorry, every one of the 12 months. Each month is associated. There are apparently 12 of the alphabet letters are considered to be the basic letters. Each one of those letters is associated with one of the months. Okay, I don't know enough to explain that or understand it yet. But in any case, the letter for the month of Adar is the letter Kuf. What does the word Kuf mean?
Monkey.
Monkey. So Molech says, monkey see, monkey do. Why are you doing this? Because you just what you saw somebody else doing it. You're copying, right? So, and to a certain extent, it's true. You go into shul and you see different people behave physically differently during davening, and the chances are that everybody's doing their physical motions according to the way they davened in their yeshiva, according to the way their parents davened, right? You see somebody just really davened, shaking. Probably his parents or his rabbi davens like that, And we learn a lot by copying, right? It's a natural thing. So Esav says, or Amalek says, you're just copying, right? Truth of the matter is, you go to Tel Aviv and if you behave like people who are, or you go somewhere to why do you dress? Why are you wearing those kinds of clothing? 40 years ago, you wouldn't walk around in a t-shirt. You'd be wearing a shirt, right? You'd be wearing a shirt. You would dress. So fashion is fashion is a reality, right? Mm-hmm. Back in Toronto, you dressed like this, Mr. Rubenfeld.
What?
In Toronto, you dressed like this? No, you didn't dress like this in Toronto. Hi, Leva, can you get the door? Somebody's at the door. But they just came in on their own. No, who's there? I guess they're putting the key away. What? Yeah. The top guy. Yeah. Okay, so page 52. So we're in the middle of the end of that big paragraph on 52. So Reb Shlomo said the letter Kuf also is the first letter of the word Kadosh. So we answer Amalek and we say, you say that I'm copying, that I'm mimicking. Come and see me on Purim when I'm drunk, when I can't copy. Then you'll see what I'm really about. Okay. So he says, Purim, this over here. See where I am? Purim, Purim, we're wiping out the memory of Amalek. Or Amalek, how do I prove to Esav or to Amalek that I really do care? So בתענית אסתר ממש דברי הצומות וזעקתם. So Tanit Esther is really what it's all about. It's about the fasting and about the crying. Kol davar nogea li ad omek haneshama. So what Tanit Esther is about is it's like everything matters to me and to my soul, down to the depth of my soul. Now, you may already know this, but the original Tanit Esther took place when? In the sun, Pesach time, when she went that night to Achashverosh. We fast in Adar because on the 13th of Adar was the day that the idol worshippers, Haman's people, were planning to wipe us out. And if you remember, and you'll see this when you read the Megillah, so after Haman is dealt with, Esther comes to Achashverosh and she says, we've still got a problem. And the problem is that you've passed a decree that we're supposed to be wiped out on the 13th of Adar. And Achashverosh says, I can't do anything about it. I can't change it because they had a law that once a letter went out from the king, even the king couldn't annul the law. It made a lot of sense. Why? Because he had this huge kingdom. They didn't have email, right? They didn't have internet. The way that communication would reach the people was that they would send messengers. Now here you are, you're living in a town that's That's what do you call it? That's 5 months away from the government's location, right? So a law arrives. So somebody says, well, yeah, this is what the king wants, but maybe he changed his mind, and maybe there's another letter on the way, and it's going to arrive in a week from now, right? So that's why they had a law that if you got a letter from the king, and then tomorrow you got a letter saying ignore the first one, the law was you have to go with the first letter. In other words, even if the second letter also had the king's signature and seal and everything. Why? Because otherwise you would never follow anything. Right? Anytime that a ruling would come, you'd say, oh, maybe he's changed his mind. So Achashverosh says to Esther, what am I going to do now? Right?
So we're celebrating the wisdom order for the year late.
No. So 1 second. Now don't forget, this meeting between Esther and Achashverosh is taking place on Purim, after Haman was exposed. Okay, but still Yud Gimel Adar is still going to be coming up, right? And how do you stop the massacre that was planned, that they were planning? So Achashverosh says to Mordechai, okay, so can you figure something out? So Mordechai says, we'll write a letter saying that the Jews are allowed to defend themselves, and that anybody that attacks the Jews on this day, it was like a one-day decree, the 13th of Adar was the day it was supposed to be all done, right? Anybody that attacks any Jew should know that the Jews are allowed to defend themselves, and if you attack them, not only are they allowed to kill you, they're also allowed, they will take possession of all your wealth. Whatever you own becomes theirs. Okay? So all of a sudden now, well, the Jews can fight back. So many people, it says in the Haggadah, in the Megillah, that many people all of a sudden became friends with the Jews, and many people even converted. And
I'm really going to kill you.
Now, but still there were hardcore people, and we went to war on the 13th of Adar. Okay, and we ended up having to kill 75,000 people on that one day. Okay, and they weren't Christians at that time. They were before Christianity, a few hundred years. The idol worshippers who wanted to kill us.
So did any Jews die?
No, Baruch Hashem. Now
75,000.
But not in one location. Don't forget it. There was 127 provinces. So across 127 Medinot divided into 75,000. You're talking about 3,000. You're talking about you're talking about how many? How much is 75,000 divided by 127?
75,000 divided by 127. Less than 1,000.
For sure, less than 1,000. No, do the math. Well, take out your phone, no? You guys don't know how to do math anymore without a phone, so use the phone.
Well, we talking about how to do math. What is it?
Oh, that's my phone. I forgot my phone.
Cancel the test. Cancel the test. No, Bernard has his phone. How much is it?
600 people per province.
What is the thing?
625 per.
625 per province.
So a lot.
It's a lot, but it's not. You're not talking about like a huge amount in one place, right? In any case, so now the thing is like this. Imagine that you're one of the Jewish people living at that time, right? And you know that some people might be attacked, and then some people might not be attacked, and so on. Now usually, what did you when you were raised and you're going into the city? What did your parents teach you? Stay out of trouble, right? You see somebody else is in trouble, watch it.
Hustle right away.
But that's not what she was taught. She was like, get on the bus or get into a taxi and get out of it, go away, right? Right? So you can imagine that a lot of Jewish people might have been thinking, wait a minute, maybe the best thing to do today is just to stay off the streets. Right? But the big miracle of the 13th of Adar is that we all went into the street. In other words, if there was going to be one Jew being attacked, it made it ikhbatli, I cared, and I went into the street to make sure that I was going to be there to help. Okay? That's the Gemara calls Yud Gimel Adar Yom Zman Kihila Lakol, the day that we all got together. We achieved this amazing unity. Okay? Now, Yom Kippur, right? I come to shul, I pray, I say, God, forgive me for this, forgive me for that, and so on and so on, right? How deep does it reach me? How deeply do I care? I don't know. I care. Yeah, I want to be forgiven. How deeply do I care that the majority of the people in my city, I'm not talking about Jerusalem, I'm just giving you an example, right? That there's 3,000 Jews in this town, and maybe only 800 are affiliated. Maybe 800 are coming to Shul Yom Kippur, right? Does it really bother me that do I really care? So that's the difference between Purim and Yom Kippur. Purim is all about how much do you care, not just about yourself. How much do you care? Period. Right? How much do you care about everybody? Right? That, as a matter of fact, so who just came back from? Oh yes, Shuli Portman just came back from Thailand. So Chaya was telling me, but you can travel around the world now, and thanks to the Chabad houses, there's kosher food all over the world. She was telling me about this, and like good food, And now, why are there Chabad houses all over the world? So the Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the former chief rabbi of England, he put it very well. He said, the Nazis in Machshimam, when they heard that there's this Jew living in a certain town, they didn't say, there's only 2-3 Jews there, forget them. They went after them. So the Lubavitch Rebbe's response after the Holocaust, his response to the Holocaust is that there's only 2-3 Jews in that town. I'm sending you somebody to help you be Jewish there. In other words, the Rebbe's response to even before the war, but the Rebbe's response to the Holocaust was, we care about every single Yid. And care is like literally care. Okay? Care is that you pack your bags, and you go there. It's amazing. Like it's one thing to be a shaliach and have a Chabad house in Yerushalayim, or to have a Chabad house in New York or in LA or whatever it is. Go be a shaliach in some former hick town, in some town in the former Soviet Union, and there's all of 15, 20 Jews, maybe, whatever, man, you gotta really care. You gotta really care, right?
You need to say the page and see where you are.
Not just but page, you got to get them to come you got to get them to come in the first place. Here's an amazing story that in one of these places, this shaliach shows up, and he's looking around in the street, how am I going to even find a Jew over here? And eventually, this older woman comes up to him, and she says to him, this is in the former Soviet Union. She says, "Mr. Lubavitcher? You're Lubavitcher?" And he says, "Yeah." She says, "Wait over here." But an hour later, she comes back with, 80 to 100 people. All of them her descendants, one way or the other. And she says to them, I've been waiting for this day. I want you to know every one of you is Jewish, and here's your rabbi. She managed she managed to make sure that every one of her children and grandchildren, without them knowing that they're Jewish, she managed to make sure that they married other Jews and that all her descendants were Jewish. And she says, and it was on that day she told them that they're Jews and that here's your rabbi. But in any case, to do that, it means you have to care, right? Like you have an obligation to learn. We're all obligated to learn Kol Torah, to learn the whole Torah, right? The Lubavitcher Rebbe did not allow, except for rare exceptions, did not allow anybody to sit in Kollel longer than 2 years maximum. After getting married, you can sit and learn for another year, maybe 2. After that, get out there and start teaching others. So people were asking the question, wait, I didn't finish learning the whole Torah. I'm obligated to learn the whole Torah. And his answer was, true, you're obligated to learn the whole Torah, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of Jewish kids that don't even know an Aleph. So you'll have to sacrifice your learning so that another Jew can know Aleph. Okay? That's the difference between caring about yourself or caring about everybody else, right? You have to care. Purim is about, I care deeply. Amalek says to Yaakov, yes, Esau says to Yaakov, you don't really care. You're just faking it. And the answer of Purim is, no, I'm not. I really do care. And we reach that level of caring, particularly on Purim, because the Alter Rebbe explains the Haman's decree was against the Yehudim. If somebody wanted to give up being a Jew and save his life, he could have. Right? And don't forget, we're not talking about Jews who were particularly religious in those days. We were quite assimilated. Okay? And still, we found it deeply inside ourselves. We found how deeply we really do care about being a Jew. And that's what Purim is about. So Purim that's what wipes out Amalek. Your real caring is the answer to Amalek's charge that you don't really care. So, so בפורים אנחנו מוחים את זכר עמלק. I'm reading that last sentence again. Right, Purim, I'm really wiping out Amalek. איך אני מוכיח לעשו לעמלק שכן אכפת לי? How do I prove to him that I really do care? בתענית עשתה ממש דברי עצמות וזעקתם. כל דבר נוגע לי עד עומק הנשמה. Everything matters to me. The last, most assimilated Jew matters to me. Okay? המאה שלוח אומר, the מאיר שלוח says, Amalek עושה אותי קר, שאני לא ארגיש כלום. There's a famous teaching, right? It says, אשר כוחך בדרך. We read it yesterday in Shul. Amalek, literally, the Pashup Pshat is that he encountered you on the road and he attacked you. So the word kocha is also related. It has the letters kufresh, kar, cold. Right? What does that mean? Shani lo argish klum. He cooled you off from who you are. Esav Omer li Yaakov, madua kibalti et habrachot? Esav says to Yaakov, how is it that you got the blessings? Mipnei sheYitzchak lo ro'eh. Because Yitzchak couldn't see. Hu chashav she'ata mishu, aval ani yodea she'ata klum. He thought that you're somebody, but I know that you're nobody. Katuv, it says, Vayivater Yaakov levado. Yaakov remained behind by himself. Right? When he brought his family across the Yabok River, coming back to Israel, then all of a sudden he found himself all alone and he got attacked by the angel man. Remember the story? So, Beino lebein atzmo, he was there by himself. עשיו רוצה להוכיח לקדוש ברוך הוא שיעקב גם כן בינו לבין עצמו לא רוצה להיות יהודי. Esav is trying to prove to God that Yaakov, when he's all by himself, he also doesn't want to be a Jew. Right? It's a very deep question. It's a very deep question what we raised before. Like, if you were all by yourself in some place where nobody knows that you're a Yid, would you still be a Jew? No, it's a deep question. Right? So he says, we're on page 53 now, Atfilah, afilu im hi lo yotzet me'omek halev, prayer, even if it's not coming from the depth of the heart, adayin Hashem yachol lishmoa ota. Prayer, even if it's not coming from the depths of your heart, God still can hear it. Brachot, but blessings, when you're giving somebody a blessing, blessings have to be from the depth of your heart. The Purim, the Brachot yesh koach ad sof ha'olam. Purim, our blessings have tremendous power.
By the question that you asked, or you should have, you're all alone. Nobody sees you, but you still be
Religious.
Still be Jewish, so very good. And I was thinking about that, and I don't know if that's such a question. Because it reduces to be personal. It reduces my Funkite because that there are other people around. You know, if other people are going to see me not conducting myself at the Yoresh Shemayim, what are they going to say? I do certain things. I keep kosher. I don't know the reason for it. I keep kosher because God says so.
I'm not reducing what you're doing, what you personally are doing, or what anybody else is doing personally. That's not but there are people who keep kosher because they were raised to do it, right? But there are people who gave up keeping kosher because kosher meat is quite a bit more expensive than non-kosher meat, right? Or there are people that when they start traveling, when they're on the road, or they're living in a different community where you know, like today you can get kosher supplies just about anywhere in any supermarket. When you grew up, there weren't that many products that had a hechsher on it, right?
Even the milk had to have a.
And when you saw other people eating whatever they felt like eating, and it was mouth-watering, and everybody loves this food, you know, it's very possible that you had these feelings of like, oh, I wish I could eat it also. Right? Well, what about instead of wishing that you could eat it, you to say no, I don't want to even touch that. I don't even want to taste it. So it's a different level of commitment. Okay? And that's what Purim is about, is you're trying to get to your deepest essence commitment. You see, when we were standing at Mount Sinai, and there were all these amazing miracles, which basically, in different words, is Hashem was showing us how much He loves us. We had no choice. We of course will keep your Torah, right? But Purim, God is hidden. You don't see anything amazing, right? And on top of that, you're in danger just for being a Jew, right? So to still stick with being a Jew, look, you've heard stories of I mean, look what happened in Russia under communism. You know, Jews dropped their Judaism. It was just a small handful of people Who is going to be willing to go and be a teacher of Torah, knowing that you can get arrested and either be killed or sent to Siberia for the crime of teaching Torah to Jewish children? You really, really had to care to do that. And that's what it means by being a Purim Dikayid. In other words, how much do you care? That's the greatness of Purim. That's in that respect, Purim is even greater than Yom Kippur. Okay? אם אדם מניח תפילין והוא לא מתפלל שגם הבן שלו יניח תפילין. If a person is putting on tefillin and he's not praying that his son should also put on tefillin, as הוא יוצא חובת מצוות תפילין, he has fulfilled the mitzvah of tefillin. Right? He's fulfilled the mitzvah. He himself put on tefillin, right? אבל אם אני שומע את המגילה ונותן משלוח מנות ואני לא מתפלל, ריבונו של עולם, אני רוצה שהבן שלי, הבת שלי, הנכד שלי, גם כן ישמעו מגילה ויתנו משלוח מנות. So if I'm giving shalach manos and I'm giving gifts to the poor and I'm listening to the Megillah, but if I'm not praying, Hashem, I really want my children also to hear the Megillah, and I want my son and my daughter, and I want them also to give shalach manos and gifts to the poor. So he says, then I'm not fulfilling the obligation of the Megillah. Now, it's not a halacha that he's stating that right now, but he's going deeper. And he says, why not? That this mitzvah will not depart from their children. And all the mitzvahs that I do on Purim, alai להתפלל שהמצוות לא יעברו מזרעי עד שיבוא המשיח. All the mitzvahs that I'm doing on Purim, I have to pray that all my descendants until Mashiach will continue to do this mitzvah as well. It's really, really, I used to say to Judy when we'd be sitting and listening to Shlomo, I'd say sometimes to her, I'd say, he's killing us. Because he was revealing such depths of Yiddishkeit. Like when did you ever first hear about that on Purim, that you got to be praying for your children to do the mitzvah also? When did you ever hear that? It's amazing. These he was, or that Purim is all about caring about everybody else. This is like, I sit there and I say, wow, it feels like I didn't even start yet.
Somebody accosted me on the street last night. I was coming home. I was in the road and I was walking down the arc. And this fellow who was he accosted me. He said, he sent me an English. Said, "Are you ready for Purim?" And he's yelling at me. I mean, he wasn't going to attack me. And I said, yes. I already bought the Mishloach.
Was he short with curly hair?
But he wasn't short. He was slightly taller.
That's her husband.
Sounds like him.
I didn't realize what he was saying until right now. I didn't realize Purim was such a serious matter. So I gather what he meant. It is not just the drinking of the wine, getting a dress in the cup. It's much more than that.
Yeah. It's a very serious Yom Tov. It's a very serious party. Isn't that paradoxical? But it's paradox doesn't mean that it's not true. It's paradoxical. It's a very serious holiday. There's an amazing story that there was this Lubavitch Chassid, Rabbi Weinberg was his name. He used to give Tanya lessons on the radio in New York, and the English Tanya, the lessons in Tanya is taken from his work. So he was one of the first people that used to go on trips on behalf of the Lubavitch Rebbe as an emissary. And whenever he would be leaving on a trip, he would first go in to see the Rebbe to get a blessing. And the Rebbe would always ask him, okay, so what's your itinerary? So he told him on this one occasion, he told me exactly what his itinerary was. He was going to some countries, in some African countries, Morocco, who knows where, whatever. Anyway, so the Rebbe says to him, are you also planning to be in such and such a place? I don't know the name of the place. So he says, not really, it's not on the itinerary. So the Rebbe takes a box of matzah and he says, if you happen to be there, there's a Jew there, find him and give him this matzah and tell him that, the Bishneirson from Brooklyn sent him this matzah. So Rabbi Weinberg, being the chassid, he figured, okay, somehow he's going to be there, but he didn't know how. And this is in the 50s. So they're in the middle of one of the flights. The pilot comes on air and he says to everybody, put on your seatbelts. We're having engine trouble. Hang on. A few minutes later, the pilot says, we have to make an emergency landing. And they land. And lo and behold, where did they land? In the city that the Rebbe asked, are you going to happen to be there? And after another 15, 20 minutes, the pilot says, we need some spare parts. We're in a very remote region, and we're going to be here for 3 days till everything gets repaired, and we're putting you up in hotels. So they get off the plane, and now Rabbi Weinberg knows he's got 3 days to find this Yid. So he starts going around in the downtown sections, going literally from door to door, knocking on every store. Are you Jewish? Do you know of any Jews in town? Most of the people don't even know. They never even heard about Jews. Anyway, it's already the third day. In a couple of hours, he's got to go back to the airport. Hasn't found anybody. And it's boiling hot outside. Anyway, so he goes into this restaurant to get a glass of water, and he asks the waitress, are there any Jews here? She says, I'm one of the few people that actually know what a Jew is, and I can tell you there isn't a single Jew in this town. No, he's sitting there drinking his water. A few minutes later, the busboy comes over. And he says, excuse me, you're looking for a Jew? He says, yes. He says, I'm the only Jew in town. The Weinberg takes out the box of matzah, and he says, here, the Lubavitch Rebbe sends you these matzahs. The guy was totally blown away. What was his story? He was a Holocaust survivor. And he decided after the Holocaust that he's going to live in some place where they don't even know what Jews are. He's going into hiding, basically. And he did his research, and he found this city in this particular country, and in fact, yeah, it was the kind of place he was looking for. So what happened? He says eventually it started really getting to him as to how lonely he is. And he decided he has to join the community somehow. And he decided that he's going to convert and join the local religion. Anyway, even though he wasn't religious at this point, he says, God, if you really are there and you really care that I should be a Jew, I'm giving you 30 days. 30 days. If in 30 days you don't give me a clear sign that I'm supposed to be a Jew, I'm giving it up. And he says to Rabbi Weinberg, today is the 30th day. Okay. Today is the 30th day. So, how do you understand that story? How did the Lubavitcher Rebbe know? I don't know. I can't answer you that question. I haven't. What am I going to use? Words like psychic, ruach hakodesh. I can't explain those things, But it's a real tzaddik. A real tzaddik feels the pain of another soul, and geographic distance. Geographic distance doesn't make a difference. I told you once already, more than once. The Visioner Rebbe said that if you don't feel the pain of a woman in labor in a radius of 300 kilometers, you're not a Rebbe. In other words, you can be very devout. Do you know who that was?
Yes, she was searching for you. She's searched for schedule, but she didn't know from him, but she comes later.
Thank you. If you don't feel the pain of another person, so good. You could be a really devout person. You're doing all the mitzvahs and so on and so on, but you're not on the level of a tzaddik. A tzaddik actually feels the pain of another neshama and feels the joy of another neshama and so on. So, let's say, for example, the example that I was given was like this: you're sleeping at night and all of a sudden you feel chilly. So you instinctively, you sort of pull the blanket over your shoulder, right? You don't have to wake up and analyze the situation. Why am I cold? Which part of my body is cold? Oh, it's my shoulder. I guess it wasn't covered. Well, I better pull the blanket over my shoulder, right? You don't have to do that, right? You instinctually just do it, right? Why? Because you're really connected to every part of your body, right? If you're not, if you have to analyze which part of me is cold and why is it cold and what should I do about it, means you're not really connected that way. You're not that deeply connected. So if I see a Jew and he's walking into McDonald's on Yom Kippur, right? And I sit down and I say, that's not really right. He probably doesn't know anything about it. Maybe I should go and talk to him. Very nice, but I'm not instinctually connected with this person. My instinct is not saying, wow, I really have to do something about this. You understand? The Purim is about reaching that place where you instinctually care about your Judaism and about the Judaism of all your people. It really matters. Now we all have this voice of Amalek saying, no, you're just a faker, it's not for real, you don't really care. But that's Amalek doing his job. Now, then you have a situation where I care, but who am I to do something about it? Right? I'm not big enough, I'm not special enough, I'm not whatever it is. I should go and do something about it, right? And the answer to that is that if you're presented with an opportunity to do something positive, it's divine providence, it's God's divine providence that presented you with this opportunity. So who are you to say that you're not good enough? And that's what the Haftarah yesterday about King Saul not completing the job with Amalek is because he didn't think that he didn't think that he was good enough to really do the whole job. And Shmuel says to him, if God gave you this situation, this job opportunity, this situation that you're being faced with, it means Hashem believes that you could do something about it. If you see somebody doing something not right, do you think that Hashem just made all these arrangements that you should happen to be there at the time that this person is doing the transgression, because God is wanting you to know that this ye did a transgression? Is God speaking Lashon Hara? That's why Hashem arranged that you should see this? No. It was arranged that you should see this for two reasons, says the Baal Shem Tov. One is that you should know you've got the same problem, maybe a little bit more refined, but you've got the same problem. And two, I want you to do something about it. Now, in some circumstances, you can go over to the person and speak to them and talk with them and encourage them, etc., etc. In some circumstances, you can't. So what am I supposed to do when I can't actually do something about it? Well, you can pray about it. You can do something about it. You can care, right? There's a story about this Yid. He and his wife were married already many years, and they were childless. And he was going around from one Rebbe to another Rebbe to get a blessing to have a child. And every Rebbe was telling him, I'm sorry, I can't help you. The gates of heaven are locked. Anyway, he ended up coming to the Vurka Rebbe. And the Vurka Rebbe also says, I just can't do anything about it. The gates of heaven are locked. So the man left. A few minutes later, the Vurka Rebbe went and ran after him. He says, I'm sorry, there is something I could do. He says, I can cry with you. I can cry with you. And he sat down and cried with the man. And that opened up the gates. Right? So, you see somebody's in a dire situation. You can't physically do anything about it. But can you cry over it? Can you care about it? Or do you just say, well, I can't do anything anyway, let's just go on? That's the idea over here. Purim is about caring, and the truth is that we all do care deeply. Problem is that we don't pay attention to it. We don't give ourselves a chance to consider how deeply we care. Because we're just so busy with everything else. Shabbos is coming. I got to get my shopping done. I got to get my food prepared for Shabbos, etc., etc. But what about, have you thought about all the other Yidden who aren't making Shabbos? Do you care for them? Right? So this is the big lesson of Purim, caring, the big lesson. Okay, so tomorrow, Mr. Hashem, we continue, and it's going to be Purim in a very few days.
So intense, all these kind of years. So intense. What?